What's going on, everybody? The Networking Guru here, and we're going over Domain 3 of our Network Plus full course. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, ring that bell so you can stay tuned for all of our content, certification training videos. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're doing Domain 3. We should have about 80 questions here. So I'm going to get my face out of the way. We got our Domain 3 questions on our learning management system. If you want access to this, click the link in the description below, where you can get full access to our complete learning management system, quizzes, exams, flashcards, access to me and my network. But let's do this quiz. Let's zoom in. I want to make sure you guys can see this. Perfect. We like this view better. Let's go ahead and get started. So question 1. Which of the following defines the maximum amount of time that a system can be down after a failure or disaster? So we're going over these acronyms for disaster recovery. System can be down after a failure amount of time. So we're going to go with, more than likely, this is going to be recovery time objective. Let's go ahead and hit submit. So what the RTO is, this is saying, hey, right of bang, right of the incident, when do we have to be back online? When do we, oh, my face is in the way here. Okay, there we go. When do we have to be back online, right? What is the max amount of time that a system can be down after a failure or disaster? Recovery time objective. So we want that to be, hey, we need to be back up in 2 hours, or we're going to start losing money. We're going to start losing data. Something's going to be irrecoverable. Some sort of data is going to be irrecoverable. This could be due to like your backup points that you have, how you do your full incremental differential backups. Every question in our academy has an explanation, so pause the video if you'd like to read. Question 2. Which connection method is ideal for automating network management tasks and interacting programmatically with network devices? So how do we touch the network? How do we touch our network infrastructure? So we can look at traditional networking, where we go to each individual piece of hardware, router, switch, firewall, access point, and we get to the CLI that interacts with the kernel of that device. We'd use a console port if we're in person, or we'd SSH to it to get to the CLI. Now, this is saying, how do we interact with programmatically? So how do we look at our infrastructure as code? How do we interact with for the controller-based networking, our southbound interfaces, our fabric underlays in a programmatic way? Well, I'm doing REST API calls. I'm doing post, put commands, get commands. Well, we need an API for that. We need an API, an application programmable interface endpoint, to be able to interact with programmatically our network devices. And this is when we have software-defined networking and controller-based networking. So that's going to be C, API. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. We got 80 questions, so I'm going to not take as long as I'm taking for each question. Question 3. Why is IP address management, IPAM, critical for a growing network? So IPAM, that is how we structure our IP addressing, the hierarchy of our IP addressing. Meaning, if we have a /8, 10.0.0.0/8, and we're using that private subnet for hundreds of thousands of remote sites in our international or global enterprise, or maybe we need to manage all the public IPs we have, it's good to have a central system to manage all those IPs. One that I've used before is Netbox or Natobot. That's a great IPAM system. I'm old school. I've also used Excel spreadsheets to manage a large /16 or /8 subnet. So the answer is D. It prevents IP address conflicts and ensures the efficient use of IP addresses. It helps you in the hierarchical nature of IP addressing for all of our different sites in a large enterprise. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 4. What is the primary difference between split tunnel and full tunnel VPN configuration? So full tunnel, that routes all traffic to wherever your VPN endpoint is. So if you're a client list, you're site to site in a full tunnel configuration, wherever that endpoint is, wherever your next hop to that VPN. So if you're the client, your remote access VPN, and you're in a full tunnel config, no matter what you do, 000/0 is all going through the VPN to wherever that VPN concentrator is on the other end, no matter what. A split tunnel typically is enterprise destined IP traffic. So if you're talking to your enterprise, you're accessing something on the network enterprise, you go through the VPN. All other traffic, we call internet traffic in this case, is going to go out your regular ISP connection, whatever that is. So, what's the primary difference? Let's read this. Split tunnel routes all traffic. Okay, so yeah, what's going to be B here? Full tunnel routes all traffic through the VPN, while split tunnel routes only specific traffic. And yeah, like you could just say enterprise-based traffic, boom, VPN, everything else out your regular ISP connection. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 5. Which of the following best describes the purpose of a site-to-site VPN? So site-to-site, that's spoke to hub, spoke to spoke, router to router, firewall to firewall, actual network infrastructure making a VPN connection to each other. So we're going to go with B here. To connect two separate networks at different locations over a secure tunnel. Site-to-site, that's typically like an IPsec tunnel or... Dang, my face is still too big here. Maybe if I move it down here, maybe that'll be better for us. Let's see if I really like this better. But yeah, it's usually like network infrastructure. Two separate networks at different locations geographically over a secure tunnel. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 6. Which of the following is the most critical reason to replace an IT asset before it reaches end of support? So end of support, end of life, both very similar, but really when something's end of life, end of support, start replacing it. End of support means that the vendor is no longer going to provide patches. End of life typically means that we're no longer selling it. So which of the following is the most critical reason to replace an IT asset before it reaches end of support? The vendor is no longer providing any fixes for your hardware, software, or firmware if it's end of support. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 7. In asset inventory management, which of the following is the primary purpose of maintaining warranty information? So, I mean, this one, yeah, it's to track support, eligibility, and plan for replacements. Asset inventory management, that's like, if you've done inventory in a restaurant or in a retail store, this is what we're talking about just for our IT assets now. So to track eligibility, track warranties, track when is end of life, when is it end of support, when do we look at lifecycle replacements and plan for replacements, okay? Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 8. What is the role of a secondary DNS server? This is redundancy, right? A secondary DNS server, what we're looking at here is not something like, oh, this is similar to what a name server would be or a top level domain DNS server. It's just literally secondary to provide redundancy for your DNS server. So it's going to be B, to provide redundancy by storing a copy of the DNS records. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 9. Which of the following is not a primary objective of configuration management in a networked environment? So we're going to go with which of the following is not a primary objective of configuration management in a networked environment? We're going to go with A, managing IP address allocations and tracking subnets. So there's the explanation. Pause the video if you'd like to read. Question 10. In a client site-to-site VPN configuration, which of the following statements about split tunneling is true? So again, with a split tunnel, typically internet traffic or specific traffic will go out the ISP, and then our our enterprise traffic, our intranet traffic, where we access the SharePoint portal, is going to go through the VPN. So security is only used in clientless VPNs. Technically, it's not true, but it's typically where you see when we want to care about full tunnel versus split tunnel, it's typically in like remote access clientless VPNs, but I believe this answer is going to be A. Let's see. Yep, so A. Split tunneling sends only specific traffic through the VPN, while all other traffic uses the user's regular internet connection. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 11. Which of the following is not a key component of software management in an IT environment? What is not a key component of software management? So the only answer here is decommissioning unused hardware. Hardware, software are different. Software gets put on our hardware, right? And when something's end of life, yes, there is hardware there may need to decommission, but that has nothing to do with the software component of that. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 12. What is the purpose of a jump box or jump host in network management? So jump box kind of sits like almost like that man in the middle, where we, instead of directly remotely managing assets directly from our house, we go to a jump box or jump server first, and then pivot from that jump server to, manage whatever infrastructure we may have. This could be in the form of SSH. I've had jump box servers where I SSH to a server, and then from that server, like a Linux server, I SSH from there to all my network infrastructure. I've done it where I remote desktop to essentially just a Windows server that all the admins had access to, and on that Windows server was all of our admin tools, and from there, we can do remote access or RDP into our domain controllers and do our administrative tasks. And that was nice because we could do that from any computer instead of having our own computer with all those different applications installed. So let's look at the answers now. What is the purpose of a jump box or jump host in network management? It's going to be B, to act as an intermediary for accessing devices in a secure environment. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 13. What is the primary purpose of a rack diagram? So rack diagram, that's like your data centers. We get a rack. We want to see what's in it, how it's cabled. On the bottom maybe is our ups. On the side is our PDU, and then somewhere in the back, the top is our PDU, patch panel on the top, and then we have our storage compute network, and we want to see the physical arrangement of that rack. So I'm going to go with C here to document the physical arrangement of devices in a network rack. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 14. Which DNS zone type is used to convert an IP address back into its corresponding host name? So DNS does host named IP resolution. That's its main purpose. But in this scenario, in this zone, we actually want to do the opposite. We want to do it in reverse. So this is going to be B, where we're mapping an IP address back to its host name. So that's going to be a reverse zone. That's what a reverse zone is in DNS. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 15. Which of the following best describes port mirroring? So port mirroring or span allows you to essentially duplicate everything coming in that interface on a switch, duplicating it to another switch port where you're plugged in, and you got Wireshark on that bad boy, getting all those PCAPs. So we're going to go with A, a technique used to duplicate network traffic for monitoring or analysis. And the actual technical configuration of this, like on a Cisco switch, would be span, RSpan, or ERSpan, extended remote span. Question 16. What is the primary advantage of using SNMP version 3 over SNMP version 2C? So SNMP version 2C has no encryption, and it technically has authentication in the form of community strings, but they're set in plain text. Think of it as just like passwords. It is just a password that gets sent in the SNMP message from SNMP manager to SNMP agent. And it's just clear text. It's just a little like, oh, here's our password that we share in common that we have to have the same to be able for me to be managed by you. With SNMP version 3, we have encryption and authentication and hashing, so our passwords are not set in clear text. So SNMP version 3 provides stronger security through encryption and authentication. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 17, another SNMP. What is the role of the MIB, Management Information Base, in SNMP? So that defines the structure of how SNMP reads things on a device, how it can manage a device. So Management Information Bases contain the structure for OIDs, object identifiers. And if I want to see the CPU threshold of a Cisco switch, the MIB is going to define what my OID number would be. And in that SNMP packet, that GET request, that SNMP GET message, I'm going to put that OID to my SNMP agent to say, I need this OID's information, which is like CPU threshold in this case. So it defines the structure of data that SNMP can manage on a device. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 18. What is the primary advantage of using a hot site for disaster recovery? Hot site's immediate failover. It's expensive, but it's immediate failover. So we're going to go with B. Compared to a warm or cold site, where it's going to take you hours or days with a cold site to come up, and it's not fully configured. Sometimes hot sites are just your already redundant site. A lot of B answers here. I don't like it. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. I should have shuffled them better. Question 19. What is the primary function of a service level agreement in an organizational IT environment? So service level agreement from the service provider's perspective, whether you're ISP, CSP, or MSP, is to tell your customers who are going to be buying your service what level of service you're providing as far as uptime goes, or what you're contractually obligated to as far as support goes. So that's going to be D, to outline the minimum performance and availability commitments from service providers. And every service provider at any level will have some sort of SLA. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 20. If a system has a mean time between failures of 2 years, what does this indicate? So mean time between failures, that means this is the time where we can expect it to fail. So if it fails June 1st, 2024, and it fails again October 1st, 2024, every 4 months we can expect it to fail again. So it's expected to fail on average once every 2 years. So it's B. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 21. Which of the following best describes a recursive DNS server's function? So recursive DNS. So in our DNS hierarchy, we have a lot of different servers that do different tasks. We have our root servers, our top level domain servers, our name servers, and then our recursive DNS servers, which is what you're used to. That's just like, if I did an IP config on your Windows machine, if you're watching this at home, whatever your default gateway is, your ISP, that's your DNS server. That's your recursive DNS server. So it's supposed to be there to quickly resolve things. So it's like, oh yeah, I have this stored in cache. When it doesn't know where to send things, it then goes through its process. Root server, TLD server, name server, and then boom, I got the hostname to IP address resolution, and now I'm storing it. So we're going to go with D. It resolves domain names by querying multiple DNS servers on behalf of the client. So C, it's like, that's also, that could have confused you, because it's not permanent. Obviously, if it does it one time, does it multiple times, like YouTube. Anyways, that's what a recursive DNS server does. It resolves domain names by querying multiple DNS servers on behalf of the client. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 22. Which of the following DNS record types maps a domain name to an IPv6 address? So DNS is all about its record types. A, quad A, text, pointer, MX. All these CNAME records, a big one. I almost missed it. That's what DNS is. It's all these record types that allow you to browse the internet as a human with human language. Google.com, not the IP address Google.com. We would never memorize that. So the basics, the fundamentals of DNS are A records mapping a host name to IPv4, but with IPv6, that's a quad A record. It does the same thing. It maps a host name to an IPv6 address. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 23. What is the function of a DHCP relay agent, often referred to as an IP helper? So with DHCP dynamically allocates IP addressing information to clients. IIP, subnet mask, default gateway, DNS, and other options if you configure them. DHCP, the process is called DORA, discover, offer, request, acknowledge. From the client broadcasts the discover and request messages. A broadcast stays within your local area network. So a DHCP server by default has to be in your local network, has to be your local area network to receive that broadcast to then give that client IP addressing. That's not, it could happen, but that's not common on these big enterprises. DHCP servers don't always sit within your LAN. Even if it's on-prem with you, it could be in a different VLAN than a client in VLAN 10 that needs DHCP to give it IP addressing. So a DHCP relay agent or an IP helper address or an IP helper takes that broadcasts discover message from the DHCP client, turns it into unicast, and forwards it to the DHCP server to act as that almost man-in-the-middle intermediary between client and DHCP server. It's a relay. It helps it relay that DHCP information. So let's see. Yeah. It forwards DHCP messages between clients and servers located on different subnets, broadcast domains. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 24. What is a primary advantage of out-of-band management? So out-of-band management, that is something like, maybe outside of the normal network that a router may sit on. Or, it's really what it is it provides dedicated path for management traffic, saying we're going to make our own network, our own segment that's just for management. It's just for management. So we have this management, dedicated management traffic for our devices, for our admins. So it's B. It provides a dedicated path for management traffic, allowing device access even if the primary network is down. And that's one of the big advantages. If your data VLAN's down, do we still have management VLAN access? Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 25. Which method is commonly used for duplicating network traffic to a specific monitoring device for analysis without interrupting the network flow? So we already went over this. This is port mirroring. And again, the actual technical configuration of this is something called SPAN, RSPAN, or ERSPAN. But yes, it will duplicate network traffic on a switch port and send it to another port local on the switch. RSPAN, a remote switch in the local area. Or ERSPAN, we encapsulate it with GRE and send it to a distant site that duplicated traffic. This is port mirroring. It's going to be A. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 26. Which of the following best describes a logical network diagram? So logical, let's see our answers here. If we think of logical, that's going to be like our IP addressing. Oh, we have this tunnel here that connects these sites using GRE or IPsec, and here's our MPLS traffic engineering tunnels on our core transporter WAN side. That's going to show you how data should flow. So I'm going to go with B, a diagram that focuses on the flow of data and the IP addressing within the network. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 27. Which time protocol security mechanism ensures that time synchronization messages are protected against tampering? Well, there's only two on there that deal with time. PTP is at atomic micron seconds of time compared to NTP. This is for industrial equipment. No protection though. That's B. It's network time security that adds those as protection. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 28. Why is baseline monitoring important in network management? So when we create a baseline in users' traffic behavior, what they're going to, sites they're going to, and we can monitor that for a long time. Add in a machine learning model, an LLM, to monitor that for us and alert us when it deviates. Why is that good? Because if all of a sudden we have a couple megs of traffic at 2 in the morning, typically because no one's on there, so maybe computers are doing updates, whatever the case may be, and we see gigabytes of traffic being exfiltrated from internal to external, that might be an attack. That might be someone's computer's compromised and a logic bomb, or they're exfiltrating data, something's happening. That's why it's important. It's also important so we can see top talkers. If all of a sudden one of our users is trying to download something, torrent something on our corporate network, we can see that. It's beyond our baseline, and we may have things that automatically alert us because, yes, in a NOC, as a network engineer, a NOC analyst, you may be staring at a big TV screen, but you may not always be looking at, let's see our top talkers 24/7. So, let's be, it provides a standard to detect anomalies by comparing current performance to normal performance levels. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Which of the following is the primary rule of DHCP in a network? We kind of already touched on this, but yeah, it's assigning IP addressing information dynamically. So we're going to go with C. Dynamically assigning IP addresses and network configuration parameters. And yes, it can do more. It's assign option 150 addresses, TFTP for pre-execution environment, things like that. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 30. Almost there. What layer of a network diagram would focus on switches, MAC addresses, and VLAN configuration? That's all layer 2, guys. OSI model layer 2 is a data link layer that deals with MAC addresses, which is what switches use to forward and store traffic in a MAC address table. That's where VLANs are. The IEEE 802.1q standard inserts a 4-byte VLAN tag header into the Ethernet frame, a layer 2 packet. That's the answer, A. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 31. Which DNS record type would you use to specify a mail server responsible for receiving emails for a domain? So all these records here, A record, host name, the IP address resolution, canonical name record, and alias, MX. There you go. NS is a name server record pointing to the name servers. It's an MX record. Mail exchange record. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 32. Which DHCP configuration allows an administrator to ensure that a specific IP address is always assigned to a particular device based on its MAC address? So that's when we want to say, hey, this device will always get this. It's kind of like doing static IP addressing in DHCP, or just making sure that that printer, that VTC machine, that NAS that we assigned is always the same IP address. We got to map that to people's endpoints, workstations. C, a DHCP reservation. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 33. Which of the following best describes flow data in network monitoring? Flow data, like net flow. So that's going to be, that's us monitoring all the traffic. The layer 3, the layer 4 destination, and where are our users going to? Where is all of our bandwidth going to? What analysis can we do? So it's going to be A, a representation of traffic patterns between devices, showing which devices are communicating and how much data is being transferred. That's going to be A. This could be out to external. This could be even internal as well, like on our campus area network. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 34. Which of the following is a characteristic of precision time protocol that differentiates it from NTP? So yeah, and PTP is technically more accurate at the nano microsecond precision. It's usually used for like industrial things. They do the same exact thing, but more precise. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. It's in the name, kind of. Question 35. Which disaster recovery site option typically requires the longest recovery time and setup upon activation, as it only has basic facilities with no pre-installed equipment? It's a give me question, but it's a cold site. That's the one that takes forever. I think it's almost worthless. I mean, obviously not. There is a purpose for it, but that's just, hey, we rent this data center, we pay the power bill every month, but this is what we got. Question 36. Which type of network documentation provides a visual representation of physical equipment layout within a server rack? It's a rack diagram. This is, I think, and if we get repeated questions, that's okay. If you want to hit it home, these key things. But that's a rack diagram. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 37. Which network monitoring tool or technique is specifically designed to collect and analyze security and event data from various devices across a network? So that's going to be a SIM or SIME. Biggest one is Splunk. We have like Azure Sentinel, but it does log aggregation. It collects big data from all the network that it then allows you to index your searches off it, build dashboards. That's SIM or SIME. Security, information, and event management. D. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 38. What is a key characteristic of a site-to-site VPN? That's going to be between two networks or between two sites. That's a site-to-site VPN. Contrast this with like remote access or clientless, where it's going to be an individual's computer, phone, whatever it is that has an application on it that initiates a VPN connection. Typically, this is like through TLS, through SASE. Anyways, question 39. Which of the following is a primary advantage of using out-of-band management over in-band management? So it's going to be B. It allows access to devices even if the production network is down. That's because it's not in-band. So it's not like, I'm on a user's workstation, I'm doing remote management from here. It's like, no, it's out-of-band, meaning even if this goes down, I can still maybe hit a URL, and that's like almost like a OBM device that then is directly connected to all the devices in your network rack that allows you to get into their GUI or CLI from there. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 40. What does IP address management, IPAM, primarily help with in a network environment? So it's going to be A, managing IP address allocations and subnets. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 41. Which of the following protocols ensures accurate time synchronization of network devices with high precision and security? And security is kind of misleading there. It's high precision. It's going to be PTP, right? It's going to be the precision time protocol. It's like almost just a give me right there. Maybe it won't be as easy like that on the test, but we're hitting home what you need to know. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 42. What is the primary purpose of a MIB and SNMP? That is to define the structure of network performance data. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. In the context of lifecycle management, which of the following terms refers to when a vendor stops providing updates and support for a piece of hardware or software? That is end of support. Different from end of life where they just stop selling that software or hardware. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 44. Which SNMP version introduced encryption and secure authentication to improve the security of network management? That's SNMP version 3. That was the first version of SNMP, the simple network management protocol that added encryption and authentication. Question 45. Which VPN configuration allows a user to connect to a remote network without installing a dedicated VPN client? That's going to be a clientless VPN. Or client to site. No, pretty sure it's C. It's C. Clientless VPN. That is, on our device. We can even use like a web page, and that's a clientless VPN that allows us to VPN into our enterprise. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 46. What is the primary function of a tabletop exercise in disaster recovery planning? It's going to be to simulate. So sorry, just reading the answers. A tabletop exercise is we get around a table. We say, here's the system we have in place. You're all my stakeholders in the environment. If our credit card processing, our POS systems get breached, finance is what you do. Accounting, this is what you do. Probably same department. Marketing, our PR team, here's what you do. And cybersecurity, IT team, here's what you do. So we simulate a disaster scenario and walk through the steps of our disaster recovery plan. And that's documents and steps inside of that. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 47. Which type of network diagram focuses on mapping IP address allocations and layer 3 routing information within a network? A layer 3 diagram. That's an easy one. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 48. What is the primary difference between in-band and out-of-band management? So it's not A, because OOBM does not use production and traffic. It's going to be B. In-band management uses the production network for management traffic, while out-of-band uses a separate dedicated management network. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 49. This is another repeat. This is SNMP version 3, but provides encryption and authentication for secure communication. The reason you see so many repeats is because we have our domain 3 full questions, but then we have check on learning and quizzes within the lesson. So sometimes it just repeats and then we collect them all. And we have some repeats, but that's okay. Question 50. Which of the following tools would be the most useful for tracking trends and detecting anomalies over time in network performance? Which of the following tools? So it's not going to be SNMP. It's not C or D. Syslog is logging messages. We can centralize them. We could create some sort of baseline. But I'm going to go with baseline metrics here. Let's see what the explanation says. Yep, baseline metrics. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 51. What is the primary purpose of change management in an IT environment? So why do we do change management? And that is so we track it. We have a controlled way of doing change management so that we have that backout plan or rollback plan that's approved by management so we don't mess something up in production and start losing money for the business. So it's going to be B, to track and control changes in a way that minimizes risk and disruption. Question 52. What is the purpose of the DHCP relay or IP helper feature in a network? It's going to be A, to forward DHCP requests across subnets. Takes that broadcast, turns it to unicast to get it to the DHCP server that may not sit within that broadcast domain. Question 53. Which disaster recovery metric specifies the maximum amount of data that can be lost due to an outage measured in time? That's a tricky one. So let's break this down. So a lot of times you see the word time in there, you think recovery time objective. But that's saying how much time will it take, right? This is saying what's the maximum amount of data that can be lost. Not specifically just this will take 2 hours. Is how much data can be lost. Is it 15 minutes of data, 30 minutes of data? When was our last backup? That's going to be A, the recovery point objective. When you see data, think RPO. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 54. Which of the following best describes a jump box / jump host? We're going to go with D here. An intermediary device that users connect to before accessing other network devices, enhancing our security. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. So another repeat question here, but I like it because SIEM is a big part of this section. But yeah, it's SIEM or SIM. SIEM, Security Information Event Management, is going to be correlating data. So the question 55, which of the following tools is primarily used for analyzing logs and detecting security incidents by correlating data from multiple sources? That is a SIEM or SIM system. It says B down here, but that's just, I'll go edit that, but it's C, SIM. Question 56. What is the primary function of network discovery tools and network monitoring? Network discovery. It's not going to be packet captures. I'm going with A or C here. It's not D. It's not automatically configuring networks. I mean, network discovery, that's like CDP, LDP, using things like Nmap. So identify and map devices on network. I'm going to go with C here. Of network discovery tools and network monitoring, a part of your overall network monitoring solution. Yep, C. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 57. What is the main purpose of a cold site in disaster recovery planning? So this is the not functional. It's just, hey, we got to go set it up everything ourselves. So just basic infrastructure. It's going to be C, to have basic infrastructure ready, but no hardware or data in place just yet, wired up, hooked up, powered up. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 58. What is the primary purpose of DNSSEC in the domain name system? So this is a security extension. So it's going to be protect against DNS-related attacks by adding authentication. This uses like the public key infrastructure. It delivers non-repudiation to make sure that we're connecting to a non-malicious DNS server, the correct DNS server. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 59. What is the purpose of a baseline / golden configuration and network configuration management? So it's going to be B or D, to apply the same configuration to all devices regardless of their function. Now, obviously, we're not going to put a switch baseline on a firewall. So I like the first half of that answer. It's not A or C, but it's D, to act as a reference for troubleshooting and maintaining consistency. So we have our switches. We have a baseline golden config for switches, what it should be. Maybe we have an outside that has a little bit tweak, that needs a tweak, but maybe we have that for troubleshooting, right? So it's D, to act as a reference for troubleshooting and maintaining consistency. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 60. Which high availability approach involves both systems being online and capable of handling traffic, allowing for immediate failover if one system fails? So in a load balancing approach, this is high availability and active connection. We do this for web server farms, our wireless LAN controllers, load balancing technique, active for immediate failover. Go ahead and read the explanation. Pause the video. Question 61. Which of the following best describes an active, repeat, high availability connection? So that's when they're both active. They even can have like mirrored copies of the databases between each other. Let me D. Multiple systems are running simultaneously and sharing the load. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 62. In IPv6, which method allows a device to automatically configure its own IP address without the need for DHCP server? So this is an IPv6 addressing feature that allows you send an ICMP v6 solicitation, default gateway, you create your own IP address in Slack. It's called stateless auto address auto configuration. Now, DHCP version 6 is a thing. It is. But you technically don't need it. Now, a lot of administrators still use it. It's just familiarity, maybe some advanced features you want to use, but we don't technically need it in IPv6 for dynamically addressing IP information. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 63. Which connection method allows programmatic control of network devices through scripts or software? That's our application programmable interfaces. We kind of explained this earlier in the video as well, but that is the answer, B, API. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 64. Which network monitoring method captures a complete copy of all data packets traveling through a network segment for detailed analysis? Copy of all data packets? A, B, and D is what I'm looking at. It's not log aggregation. I think it's port mirroring again. We had a lot of repeats. I'll probably go adjust that. We don't need to see port mirroring 6 different times. It's either B or D. But captures a complete copy of all data packets. Would that just be packet capture? I think this one, I'd go B or D. Network monitoring, though. Port mirroring, is it? I would say B is a little bit more accurate here. I'm going to go with B, packet capture. Yeah, of all packets through a network segment. I'm going to go with B here. Question 65. What is the function of a CNAME record in a DNS? It's going to provide an alias for another domain name. This is how you do www. That's a CNAME record. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 66. Which VPN configuration method is most likely to use SSL/TLS to secure connections without requiring a pre-installed client application? That is clientless. Clientless VPNs use TLS a lot. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 67. Which connection method provides a command line interface for managing devices over secure connection? That's SSH. That's how we do remote management over secure connection, accessing our CLI. Question 68. What does MTTR, mean time to repair, represent in the context of disaster recovery? We're going to go with C here. This is saying we had system failure at 06 in the morning. We got it functional again at 08. It happened 3 more times and it took us 2 hours again. Our MTTR is 2 hours. Our average time is 2 hours to repair a failed component or system. Question 69. Why is having a backup configuration important in configuration management? So backup configuration, it's like rollback, right? A lot of good answers here, though. Let's go through them. A, it ensures that users, no, not users. They're thinking more admins here. B, it allows organizations to revert to a known good state in case of system failure. I'm liking that. Baseline for monitoring, no. It doesn't make sure rollouts are smooth. It's there in case they're not smooth. So we're going to go with B here. It allows organizations to revert to a known good state in case of a system failure. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 70. What type of disaster recovery site is fully equipped with hardware, software, and connectivity, allowing for near immediate failover of operations? That's our hot site. That's our redundant site. That's more than likely in what we call active state, already accepting connections, but it can fully take over in case of disaster. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 71. What is the primary difference between DOH, DNS over HTTPS, and DOT, DNS over TLS. It's going to be C. So it's kind of funny because both are using TLS as the encryption standard, but with DOH, DNS is hidden within the HTTP header. But with DOT, it's just DNS with a dedicated TLS port number for it. So it's going to be C. DOH operates over HTTPS, and DOT operates over a dedicated TLS port. I think the port number, it says it right here, 853. Question 72. Which DNS record type is specifically used to map an IPv6 address to a domain name? That's going to be our Quad A records. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 73. Which of the following best describes end-of-life and IT asset management? It's going to be A. We talked about this a lot, but end-of-life means it's no longer sold. It's not going to be on the shelves. We're done. We ain't selling it. But we still may have a couple years of support left. So that's going to be A. The asset is no longer manufactured or sold, but still may have some technical support from the vendor. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 74. Which connection method is most likely used for initial device setup or when remote network access is unavailable? There's a console. We have our comms closet, our admin closet. We got to go set up a site. We have all the Catalyst switches here. I'm a Cisco guy, so Catalyst, Cisco switches. Put the power bricks in the back. Put our whatever modules we have, inventory modules we have, power that thing up, console in, and set that baseline. Hopefully we have zero-touch provisioning if we're really slick, and send that thing off to get set up. But we use the console port initially. So it's going to be C, the console port. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 75. What is the main function of DNSSEC in a DNS environment? That's to authenticate. To authenticate, prevent those man-in-the-middles, those DNS spoofing attacks. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 76. What is the primary function of a syslog collector? So let's just collect syslogs. It'd be at central point where we send syslog messages to. It'd be D. To store and manage logs generated by network devices in a centralized location. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Which of the following best defines a service level agreement? That's a contract. A contract outlining the expected level of service between provider and a customer. Pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 78. Which disaster recovery testing method is a structured discussion-based walkthrough of the DR plan, usually without physical activation of systems? That's going to be our tabletop exercise. It's not going to be the rest of these. That's like you literally either come down or you have a sandbox environment. It's going to be A tabletop exercise. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Question 79. Almost so close. What does a wireless survey, you guys are doing so great. What does a wireless survey help identify in a network environment? So wireless survey, that's when we're like, okay, where do we need to place these? Where's our dead zones at? Where should access points be? Maybe we put on there the non-overlapping channels we want to put in here depending on our frequency ranges. But it's A or B. Oh no, in a rack? No. Physical placement of APs that wireless survey can help, but it's A. Areas of weak or strong wireless signal coverage within a building. Go ahead and pause the video if you'd like to read the explanation. Last question. Let's go, people. We almost do 100%. Which metric indicates the targeted time frame within which a system or service should be restored after a disaster to avoid unacceptable consequences? Targeted time frame. I do believe this is RTO. It's timing. It's not asking for data. It's not asking how long does it take to repair things or when it will fail. This is RTO, the recovery time objective. Let's check out our results, and we got 100%. Let's go, people. Thank everyone for viewing. We're going to continue doing these videos, so stay tuned for Domain 4. We'll probably have 50 to 70 questions, doing so many questions. Woo! But I hope you enjoyed the content. Like, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that bell. If you want access to our learning management system, click the link in the description below. $69 to get access to everything on our academy. We have some premium versions as well. But thank you for coming. Don't forget to tell your friends.